definitions and handouts for you. Tiffany's going to rest a bit. She's tired. Just take one and pass it back. It's, again, just your definitions to kind of follow along. Just to kind of caveat on what Nancy said, she kind of defined a different way of rest for us than what we kind of think about. That rest and that coming to Him and just simply resting and knowing that whatever my life looks like at the moment, it's where He wants me to be. As you've heard my testimony, it's not anywhere where I would have said, forgot to take me. I would gladly take off a lot of things that I've gone through in my life. But if I were to do that, they wouldn't make me who I am today. They wouldn't make me the daughter that He shaped me to be. So just remember those things. That you can compare yourself to Jen. Well, if I could just do what she does, not that I do a lot, please, oh my goodness. But you know what? God has a plan for you on your life and a purpose for you on your life. I've never seen that more clearly than when He gave me 3 daughters. Very, very different daughters that love Jesus in their own way, that worship Him in their own way, and that's nothing to do with me. That's all to His glory. So just remember that as you do that. That's a different concept of resting here, and understanding that He's got you, that He's going to do that. So no more crying, maybe for a minute. How has your day gone? You're awesome, right? She got me 2. One for later, and one for now. Oh, there's the whole box. So how's your day going? Have you learned any new good nuggets to carry on with you throughout the rest of your whatever life looks like? That was just the goal, to hopefully you guys to get some time. And if this whole quiet time thing is overwhelming, if this whole organizational thing, oh my gosh, Karen, is overwhelming, they're just tools and tips. Throw away the page that overwhelms you. Don't do it. If you know it doesn't fit you, throw it away. Figure out what that is. Because what we're about to do with this last section is my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Again, He uses those same exact terms, but in a different light. One that should comfort you and should help you to see that. So what were some highlights of your day? Anybody? It can be dessert, seafood, crafts. Fellowship. That's what another thing I think is beautiful about not having a schedule. I'm sure most of you guys are like, oh, we're supposed to be doing it too. We need a schedule. Not having that gives us more fellowship time. It gives you that time to just love. And be free to, if you gotta go, then go. I'm not gonna hurt my feelings. I'm not gonna be like, tomorrow morning, she didn't stay through my final session. I don't know if I like her no more. It's fine. You're free to come and go as you please and enjoy yourself. So the reason I'm asking that question is I want you to be thinking about it, because I'm a big fan of feedback. I'm sure Leanne would love to have your feedback, because if there's something that you're like, you know what, let's do it differently this way. If you I've got extra blue sheets, turn it over, write it on there. Write, hey, this was a good thing. This was not a good thing. There's extra blue sheets here as you're thinking through it, because we're going to give you a few minutes before you do leave to do that. Or you can say, this was awesome, let's do it next week. Something silly like that. Just let us know how it worked. Hey, we don't need bags. Hey, we don't need pens. Anything. Just write that on there. Let us know. Hey, give us 2 bags next time. Whatever. And you do not need to sign your name so that we will not come hunt you down and say, why did you not like my bag? It helps for planning for next time. Okay, so on your papers, remember from this morning, Jesus' yoke is what we're focusing on. He says, take my yoke upon you. So now he's going to do that a little bit more. For my yoke is easy. His yoke is not in comparison to the Pharisees and what they were throwing on, the things that we burden ourselves with. His yoke is one of repentance and faith. It's not one that should bog you down. It should weigh you down. If it is, then maybe you need to take some time in the next couple of days in quiet time and reflect on that. God, why am I feeling like this is a burden? There's a lot of times when I filled a role in ministry that I was not called to do. And it felt like a burden. Felt like a yoke that I could not carry. That I was being drugged along. Like, what in the world? God thought I was supposed to do this. And he's like, nope, Jen. So sometimes when you hear a need, it doesn't mean that you have to fill it. It may mean that someone else needs to. Or it may mean that God's bringing it to you to say, hey, we can do that. Maybe I should pray over that as an example. So there's been a lot of times when I had to take off those yokes that I've put on myself and just rest in that. But again, his yoke, you have to put it on. That's why he continues to use that kind of analogy. He wants you to understand that it's still going to be there. Can someone again read for us 1 John 5:3 because it was so awesome. Anybody?
This is the love for God, to obey his command, and his commands are not burdensome.
That is Jesus' yoke. He wants you to, and what we're, when Jesus was talking with them, he told them, he said, look, I want you to still follow the commandments. The original ones, not all this extra that you've added on to there. But I've also got one more that's way more important. To just love others. To follow what I've asked you to do and love others. The burdensome here is that it's severe, it's weighty, it's violent, cruel, and unsparing. I don't like that. And if you think about it, anything that we've placed on ourselves, just as Nancy shared too, again, any kind of plan we've put on our lives that we think, that can be a burden as well. There's a lot of things that I've planned that I thought this is the way my life was going to look, and it's not. And when I try to keep myself in that mold, that's when it becomes a burden. That's when it becomes a worry. I just get bogged down in that. And once you find that release, and this is really what you called me to do, Lord, this feels good. This feels like what you've called me to do. There's a release. This kind of thing is easy for me because it's what he's called me to do. It's gotten easier because before my knees would shake. I wouldn't wear short dresses when I was speaking because my knees would be like this and they're going to see my knees, so I have to hide them. But I'm like, okay, God, I'm going to do what you said, but I'm nervous. So it's gotten easier the more I fill that role and I know that he's called me to do. But understand those two. So easy is on your paper as well. I have to define it because you may think easy. It should be easy, Jen. It's easy. That's when you get the crickets. I just really laughing at me. Yeah, thank you. Easy here is defined as fit. Fit for use. Useful, virtuous, and good. My favorite one, I think I put lots of exclamation points on it on your paper. It's on mine. Is manageable. Yeah. All this organization stuff we've talked about, all this ways to do quiet time, ways not to do it, ways to do this and that, and it's manageable. That's what that was comforting in that specific term that he uses there, that my yoke is easy. It means you can do it. It's mild and pleasant, as opposed to the yoke that the Pharisees would place on them, the harsh and bitter and hard. Webster's defines easy as not hard or difficult. Sometimes when I look up words, Jesus is like, really, Jen, you really had to look up that word. It says easy means not hard or difficult. Oh duh. Okay, Jesus, I'm being a little bit too intense. I gotcha. Back up. It's free from pain or discomfort, not burdensome or oppressive. Like we said, still a yoke, but it's not meant to be painful or oppressive. The Greek for that term is more suitable to. Isn't that pretty too? More suitable to you. So picture this. You have a yoke that he has prepared that is suitable to you. That is easy. It is less painful. Sometimes the things that he's called us to do are painful. Like we have a counseling class for PTSD. I don't want to sit in that class. I get very nervous on Thursdays. Thursdays is very hard for me because it means Jen has to be real. And sometimes real is not fun. So there are times when the yoke that he has placed on me is difficult. But it's not burdensome. You see the difference? And I'm a firm believer in God. We like our Christian terms, our testimonies. Someone tells you to share your testimony. I'm like, well, I was 13 when I got saved. That's not necessarily what a testimony is. Your testimony is anything that God has pulled you through, and someone comes along in your path and says, I'm struggling with this, and the light bulb comes on. Oh, I was there. That's sharing your testimony. Because if you keep it inside, how are you going to help someone later on? So a lot of times, again, his yoke may be a tad bit difficult to walk through, but it's not burdens. Okay? Big difference here. Then he says, my burden is light. Again, I want you to see, we used burden before, because you're coming to him because you're weary and burdened. But then he uses it again. Why would he use that same term? But you said, you're going to help me not be burdened, Lord. Why would you tell me that you're going to give me a burden? That doesn't make any sense. We said that it's, again, if you go back to the original definitions, it's something that's carried. It's a load. Just like I just said, some of the things that he's called us to do, the loads that we are supposed to carry, which is the people he's placed in your path. If you do not have children, then who are you mentoring? And I encourage you, that was a big lesson for me to learn. I have older kids, and I'm getting there. I'm understanding that. I have one that thinks she can leave the nest and go off to college. Don't remember giving her permission to do that. She's doing it. So that, therefore, I've kind of walked 18 years of something. She still can tie her shoes and spell and do a little bit of math, so I guess I've done a good job. So therefore, that gives me not so much I can tell you how to do it and do it right, but I have some keys I can share with other people. That's mentoring. It doesn't mean that I'm the older person now and I'm the wise woman with gray hair and a bun on her head, and I will mentor you, younger child, and you will learn from my ways. No, that's not what mentoring is. Remove that. Sometimes the burdens that he asks us to carry are, so when someone comes into your path and needs you, and you know who I'm talking about, those people that come in and know that I've got to continue to talk with them and work with them, then you got to go do that. You got to use that burden. You got to, not that they're burden, please, whoa, that was totally bad. But mentoring, those kinds of things. Look for those things. Be an encourager and exhort. We did on Monday, Karen, we did the spiritual gifts and exhortation was one of those. That just means you can tell somebody they're doing a good job. Those kinds of times. Those are some of the yokes that he asks you to do. Those burdens that he asks you to carry. Because there's a lot of times when you tell someone, well, have you talked to Jesus today? Well, yeah, and they're still just not getting it. Well, sometimes they need you to tell them, you're doing a good job. Keep your head up. Keep walking. Again, remember the contrast between the burdens that the Pharisees placed. Still the same term, something that we load, something that we carry, but there's a difference between carrying traditions and laws that mean nothing to get us to heaven, and then things that we do now that help to build up our treasures in heaven. Just as, Karen was talking about the treasures. I missed Peggy's, but I was listening to Karen, and she was talking about the things that you treasure here on earth. That was a different concept for me to understand too. How do I build up my treasures in heaven? Yeah, I'm speaking when he calls me to. I'm leading Bible studies when he calls me to. What other treasures can I load up? Well, I have 4 very beautiful treasures that he's blessed me with on this earth. If all I do is lead them to Christ, then man, I've done a lot. Those are my treasures I'm laying up in heaven. Because that breaks generational mess. Like I said, thinking that my mother has always in church, regardless of when the doors were open, we were there. Those are breaking generational legacy messes. Leading them to those things. Those are kind of the burdens that we have. Our children are not burdens. Again, you've got to listen to that term. There's differences. There's a negative connotation and a positive one. There are things that we have been entrusted with in this life, burdens that we have to carry, things, loads that let's do loads, that we have to carry. But there are ways to carry those. To rest in knowing that the load I thought I was supposed to carry is not the load you've called me to now. Again, ours has changed over the years. Ministry for us, that's why, my deal bio in there says that I knew God called me to ministry when early as a teenager, but he never gave me an answer. Like, dude, be specific. I'm watching people get called into preaching and everything, and I'm like, you called me, but for what? I'm like, when are you going to tell me? And then I met the man. And then I'm like, oh, okay, he's never the same. I'm sure you guys have met him. There's, woo, we're going to do this today. We're going to do that today. Well, okay, that's ministry. Okay, we'll do this, and we'll counsel this, and we'll do this. It's never the same. Now I'm coming into more of a women's ministry, but before it was youth ministry. Be ready for the change, too, when that load is different. Like I said, I've got an 18-year-old who's about to go to college, and I'm about to be a person that doesn't have all of my chickies in their nest where they're supposed to be. That's a change. It's a difference. And then how do you still minister to her, but then you got the other three? You know, there's brace yourself for those load changes. For when it's different, when it's lighter, when it's heavier, when it's not. Get ready for those. You can only see a difference in the term of burden when you get familiar with him. We're getting back to that familiar term that we talked about earlier. When you recognize Jesus. When you start to do that. One of the things I'm resting in lately is when people come to me and ask me, Jennifer, how do you hear from God? How do you know God is speaking to you? Open your eyes. It's not that in 37 years of my life have I heard an audible, that's God. He speaks differently nowadays. It's through people that I encounter. It's through stuff that I encounter. Stephen has a thing where you're going to see a penny, probably take 5 steps and you're going to find a penny on the ground. But for him, it's a dime. You rarely see dimes. He stops for a second and he sees a dime. Okay, Jesus, thank you for that reminder that you're here and you love me. Those little things, open your eyes, see him. When stuff happens that are totally unexplainable, then you're like, oh, okay, I thought that was going to be busy today. It wasn't. Well, then that's probably God showing up in your life. Because he's going to show up. If you're looking, he's going to show up. Even if you're not, he's still going to, because he doesn't need you. But look for him. Be ready for those things. Because when you're familiar with him, the loads that we carry are no longer a burden. It's a privilege to serve him. Paul's very clear throughout Philippians. You know, Philippians 1:21 states that for me to live is Christ and to die is gain. Philippians 2:10-11 says, I want to know Christ and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of sharing in his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, and so somehow to attain the resurrection from the dead. That is true intimacy. To be so like him that you don't recognize me anymore. To be so familiar with him that Jim's no longer there. I'm going to use the marriage analogy. This whole becoming one concept. You're so much with them that you're finishing each other's sentences. You know what they like and what they don't like. You know that they're not going to like that movie, but it's okay because I'm going to put it in and he's going to be okay with that anyway. Those kinds of things where you force your likes on them, but they're going to be okay because you know them. You spend time with them. You're familiar with them. And then he says it's light. I want to look at that last word. It's light. It's light in weight. It's quick. It's agile. If you think of that kind of analogy here, if you've got a burden on you or a yoke that's on you that's so heavy, is it going to be easy to run? Is it going to be easy to walk? You need to do anything? No. So he's telling you, look, I've got a yoke for you. You do have to wear one, but it's light. You're going to be able to, when you recognize the changes in life that happen, to move to those changes. Because the burden is light. It's used figuratively concerning the commandments of Jesus. They're easy to be kept. And my favorite part of that definition is that it's doable. I think Karen said that earlier, you know, whatever he gives you, whatever burden, load, whatever you want to call it, he gives you, he also equips you to do it. I'm not going to give it to you and say, I hope you figure it out. He's not some God sitting up there moving puppet strings and saying, ha ha ha, she can't get it. No, he's going to put people in your path. He's going to put obstacles and things in your path that will help you to accomplish that task. But you have to open your eyes and recognize those things. So final, think of a ship. Not maybe, it won't be. We are armies. But we're going to think of a ship here. Think of a ship. What happens when it starts to sink? What do? Abandon. But if you want to save the ship,
Bail.
what are you doing? Let's go back to older times. They wanted to save that ship because they were stuck in the middle of nowhere. So if you still need the ship and it's sinking, what are you going to do with it?
Bail.
You're going to bail the water and you're going to lighten the load. You're going to throw off stuff that is not necessary. Get all that extra weight off so that you'll stop sinking. And then you got to patch the holes so that it stops sinking some more. But that's the concept he's talking about here. You got to lighten the load so that if there's a burdensome load that you've got in the way of his yoke, then you got to remove that yoke completely so you can put on his. Get familiar with him. That comes from spending time with him, whatever that looks like for you, and throw off the heavy, cumbersome yoke and take on his. And do you recognize when he speaks? Again, maybe not so much audibly, but do you recognize when he shows up in your day? If you don't recognize it, it's probably because you're not taking the time to see him. And be ready for those times. We're going to pray, and then I want you guys to take a few more minutes before you run out of here like, yeah, I finally released this. Take a few minutes to fill out in the back something that maybe was, you can do 2 negatives, 1 positive, 2 positive, 1 negative, whatever you want to do. Talk it over with your friends if you need to. Hey, what was something that you really liked? Take some time and give us a little bit of feedback. And just kind of sit there and ponder, what is this going to look like for me? Because I know as soon as you walk out that door, it's almost supper time. The man has been home with all the children all day long. Someone has your children all day long. Someone, if you don't have kids, someone's at home waiting for you to feed them. Stuff is going to happen as soon as you walk out that door. And you're going to forget to take that time to ponder. So I want to give you just about 2 or 3 minutes to do that. Looks like Leanne has a few extra papers if you need them. Please let us know. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. I'm not forcing you to. But I know that feedback is awesome, and it would be great. So I'm going to pray and then take some time and just ponder, do some feedback, and whatever you need to do. And I think Leanne has a few closing remarks before you run away. Okie doke. Father God, thank you again so much.